Picture that first cold sip on a hot day. The bottle is icy in your hand. The cap cracks open with a tiny hiss, and a wave of blue raspberry or tropical punch hits your tongue. It's sweet but clean, light on your tongue, with no heavy syrup feel. You can almost taste the splash of coconut water hiding underneath. And here's the wild part. A single one of these factories can fill more than 1 million bottles in a single day. That's enough Prime to hand one to every person in a major city before lunch. So today we're going inside the factory where Prime hydration is actually made. You'll see how plain water gets turned into something athletes chase by the case. You'll find out why every single bottle gets flipped completely upside down before it ever leaves the line. And near the end of this video, you'll see exactly what happens to the bottles that fail the final inspection, because the answer is not what most people think. So, if you love watching how everyday things are really made, grab the like button, dunk it in 10% coconut water, and send it rolling down the filling line with the rest of the bottles. And if finding out how your favorite drinks come to life is your kind of thing, this is your home now, so make sure you're subscribed. Now, let's step on to the factory floor. It all starts with water. Not the water from your kitchen tap, but water that gets cleaned far beyond that. Truckloads arrive at the plant, and the water is pushed through a wall of filters. First, it passes through fine screens that catch any tiny bits of grit. Then, it moves through carbon filters that strip out odors and any taste of chlorine. Finally, it's forced through a membrane so tight that almost nothing but pure water can squeeze through. The goal is simple. The water has to taste like nothing at all, so the flavor team can build the taste from scratch. But clean water alone is just clean water. The thing that makes Prime feel different is the splash of coconut water, and that arrives at the factory in a very different form. It doesn't come in fresh from the tropics. It shows up as a thick concentrate sealed in heavy drums, with most of its water already boiled off to save space on the long trip. Before it can join the batch, those drums have to be warmed and blended back to life. And while that coconut concentrate is slowly warming up, something else is happening in a sealed room across the factory. That sealed room is where the real recipe lives. This is the dry blend room, and the air smells faintly sweet and sharp at the same time. Here, workers in hairnets and gloves weigh out the powders that turn water into a sports drink. There's potassium and magnesium, the electrolytes your body loses when you sweat. There's a pinch of citric acid for that bright, tangy bite. There are the 3 muscle-building amino acids that the label calls BCAAs. And there are the vitamins, tiny amounts of vitamin A, vitamin E, and the B vitamins, measured out so carefully that a difference the size of a few grains of sand actually matters. And this is where the first bit of danger creeps in. These powders are powerful in very small amounts. Too much of one electrolyte and the whole batch tastes like metal. Too much sweetener and it turns sickly. So every ingredient is weighed twice, once by a machine and once checked against a master sheet. If the numbers don't match, the batch doesn't move. But weighing the powders is only the warm-up, because now everything has to come together in one giant tank, and that's where the magic really happens. In the heart of the factory stand the mixing tanks, and they are huge. Picture steel tanks taller than a person, each one able to hold thousands of gallons at once. The cleaned water flows in first. Then the warmed coconut concentrate is pumped in. Then the powders are added slowly while a giant blade spins deep inside the tank, folding everything together. A single one of these tanks can hold enough liquid to fill tens of thousands of bottles. And the whole time the mixture is kept cold, because warmth is the enemy here. Why cold? Because a sweet, vitamin-packed liquid sitting warm is a perfect home for bacteria. If the temperature drifts up for too long, the entire tank could be ruined, and that's thousands of dollars of Prime poured straight down the drain. So sensors watch the temperature every second. The moment it climbs too high, alarms sound and the cooling kicks in harder. While that batch is being guarded in the tank, in a completely different corner of the factory, the bottles that will hold it are being born from nothing but small plastic pellets. Yes, the bottles start as tiny plastic beads, almost like clear rice. These pellets pour into a machine that heats them until they turn soft and gooey. The soft plastic is shaped into a stubby little tube about the size of your thumb, called a preform. It honestly looks nothing like a bottle yet. Then comes the fun part. Each preform is slipped into a bottle-shaped mold. A metal rod blasts a jet of air inside it, and the soft plastic balloons outward and snaps tight against the mold walls. In about the time it takes you to blink, a thumb-sized lump becomes a full prime bottle. And the factory makes these bottles right there, on site, so they're never more than a few steps from being filled. That matters, because an empty bottle that sits around can collect dust and tiny bits of the air. So, freshly blown bottles are rushed straight toward the filling line, where they get one last cleaning. Each one is flipped over and sprayed inside with a jet of sanitized water, then blasted with air to dry. But before a single drop of prime goes in, the line has to solve one tricky problem that has stumped drink makers for years. Here's the problem. You're trying to pour liquid into thousands of bottles every minute without spilling a drop and without letting in a single germ. The answer is a machine that looks almost like a spinning carousel. Bottles ride in on a track, get grabbed by the neck, and swing around in a circle. As each bottle spins past the filling heads, a precise nozzle drops down and shoots in an exact amount of prime. Not a sip more, not a sip less. If a bottle comes out even slightly underfilled, a sensor catches it and kicks it off the line. And the speed is hard to believe. The fastest of these lines can fill hundreds of bottles every single minute, all day long. The liquid pours, the carousel spins, and a fresh bottle is filled faster than you can say the word prime. The moment a bottle is full, it slides under a capper that twists a cap on tight in a fraction of a second. But sealing the cap is not the end. In fact, the very next thing that happens is the strangest looking step in the whole factory, and it's the upside down trick I promised you at the start. So, why flip a sealed bottle completely upside down? It seems pointless. The bottle is closed, the drink is safe inside, but there's a clever reason. Just before the cap went on, the liquid was warmed for a moment to help keep it fresh, a gentle heat treatment that knocks out any stray germs. When the bottle gets tipped over and held upside down for a few seconds, that warm liquid washes across the inside of the cap and the neck, the one spot the heat might have missed. It sanitizes the cap from the inside. Then, the bottle flips right side up again and rolls on, perfectly sealed top to bottom. That's one mystery solved. But the biggest one is still waiting at the end. Now, before we follow these bottles to the finish line, let's rewind, because Prime didn't start in a factory at all. It started as a bet between two young men who used to be rivals on the internet. One was an American who built a giant following filming himself doing wild stunts. The other was a British star known for his music and his videos. For years, their fans wanted them to fight, and they actually did, twice, in boxing rings packed with screaming crowds. Then something strange happened. The two rivals became friends, shook hands, and decided to build a drink company together. When that drink first hit store shelves, fans went so wild that bottles sold out in minutes, and some stores had to call security just to handle the crowds. People were paying outrageous prices online for a single bottle, but back on the factory floor, those bottles are about to face their toughest test yet. Because filling a bottle is easy. Proving it's perfect is the hard part. Each filled bottle now rides past a row of cameras and sensors that act like robot inspectors. One camera checks that the liquid sits at exactly the right level. Another makes sure the cap is screwed on straight and tight. A third scans for any crack or dent in the plastic. All of this happens in a blur, hundreds of times a minute, faster than any human eye could ever keep up. And if a bottle fails even one of these checks, it gets pushed aside. Hold that thought, because what happens to those rejects is the secret I saved for the very end. Now here's a question that has puzzled a lot of fans. If Prime is built to replace what you sweat out, why does it go so light on salt? Most sports drinks load up on sodium, because sodium is the main thing you lose in sweat. But Prime leans hard on potassium and magnesium instead, and it leans on that splash of coconut water to carry the hydration. The makers bet that people were tired of the heavy, salty taste of older sports drinks and wanted something that felt lighter and cleaner. It was a gamble on taste over tradition. Some fitness experts argue it could use more sodium for serious athletes, but the lighter taste is exactly what made millions of people fall in love with it. And speaking of love, all those perfect bottles are finally ready to get dressed and shipped. Now everything comes together. The cold, blended liquid from the giant tanks, the bottles born from tiny plastic beads, the exact amount poured in by the spinning carousel. The caps sealed and flipped upside down to clean it from the inside. They all meet right here, at the labeling machine. A bright, glossy label wraps around each bottle and is sealed down in an instant, turning a plain, clear bottle into a prime you'd recognize on any shelf. Then, a tiny jet of ink prints a date code near the cap, a secret fingerprint that tells the factory exactly which batch and which minute this bottle was born. From there, the bottles march shoulder to shoulder down the line, gleaming under the lights, every label facing the same way like soldiers in formation. A machine sweeps them into cardboard trays, wraps them in clear plastic, and stacks the trays high onto wooden pallets. A forklift hums over, lifts a tower of fresh prime taller than a grown adult, and carries it off to a waiting truck. From plastic pellet to packed pallet, the whole journey can take just a matter of hours. And now, that last secret. What happens to the bottles that fail inspection? You might picture them getting fixed and quietly slip back onto the shelf. They don't. A rejected bottle can never be sold, and it isn't repaired and resold. Instead, it's pulled completely off the line. The good liquid inside can be safely drained away, and the plastic bottle and cap are sent off to be ground up and recycled into new plastic. So, that flawed bottle doesn't reach you, and it doesn't simply become trash either. It often comes back around as part of a brand new bottle down the road. So the next time you twist open a prime, look at the tiny date code printed near the cap. Now you know that's the bottle's birth certificate, telling the exact factory and minute it was made. And here's a little something for you to chew on. So tell me in the comments, when was the last time you bought a prime just because of the flavor on the label? If you enjoyed riding along this line, stick around and watch how another one of your favorite drinks is made next. Thanks for spending this time on the factory floor with me.